the first salary that I had was 10,000 rupees. And living in Mumbai by myself, I remember in IIT market, there was a place which was like some 5,000 rupees rent. It was one hall and kitchen. And it was really like, one of those where the roof would drip during monsoons.
But from one hall kitchen, how big is your apartment now in Powai? And I know Powai's real estate is very expensive.
But I'm grateful that I managed to get from there to where we are today.
If you empower a woman, you empower a nation. And that's exactly what happened with this lady. Her father pushed her to have an ambition and a drive to make a difference in the world instead of making round chapatis in the kitchen. On this episode of Sunday Brunch Women's Special, I am meeting CEO of Sugar Cosmetics and Shark Tank fame, Vineeta Singh. Hi Vineeta.
Hi. Gauri.
Welcome to Curly Tales. Well, it looks like all nice, pretty and sensible women live in Powai. Don't you agree?
I agree. High five to that.
High five to that.
It is a nice, chilled place.
Absolutely.
I think. How long have you been in Powai?
I have been in Powai for over 10 years now, about 12 years. What about you?
Yeah, about 15 years now.
Yeah? So when did you move to Mumbai? You're originally from Delhi, right?
Yes, I'm from Delhi and then I went for my engineering to Chennai. So I was this Delhi girl in Chennai. And then I went for my B school to Ahmedabad. So I've been sort of all over the place. And after we were graduating, we decided to start up. Yeah. And unfortunately for me, like there were 3 co-founders of mine who were from Mumbai and I was from Delhi.
Right.
So, there was no option. So then we're like, okay, Mumbai it is because the 3 of them get to save rent.
Yeah.
And I had to figure it out here.
Yeah.
But I'm glad. I love the city. I've, really enjoyed the last 15 years and I feel that it's probably now hard for me to live in any other city.
Yeah. You run a makeup company. I want to know, how good are you at makeup skills?
I am not the best. I am not as good as some of the women in my team who are phenomenal. But I learn every day.
Okay.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I feel that the fact that I came as an engineer who didn't wear a lot of makeup growing up.
Yeah.
So I always look at, all products from a very, very basic person's point of view.
Yeah.
So I feel that the fact that I am, average helps me have like a, regular consumer perspective. So we don't build products that are too elite. We build products that are perfect for most young Indian women. So.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I rely on YouTube tutorials till date. So I'm really banking on you for some meaningful tips today. But before we get to that, I'm going to treat you to a delicious brunch.
Oh, wow.
Right here. So we're at this beautiful restaurant called Eve in Powai.
Yeah.
So we've got some amazing vegetarian dishes for you.
Oh, awesome.
We've got Korean bread pull apart. We've got summer vegetable pizza, Tora pancake. There is edamame burnt garlic rice with firecracker sauce and broccoli, bamboo shoot and wild mushroom in green garlic sauce. You're a runner. Are you conscious about what you eat?
I'm not, but I didn't have a habit of having a lot of home food. So I just grew up with this, so I'm like a very boring person that way.
Talking about growing up, were you always like this career woman wanting to build an empire or have a business of your own? How were you as a child?
I think just like all other kids, I was one of those who just had those 2 choices in front of them, doctor bano or engineer bano.
Oh really? Okay.
And I grew up in the AIMS campus, right? So the thick of all the action between doctors. My dad always thought that growing up, there's a lot of social and culturalizing for women, which makes them less ambitious. So he always pushed me to be very ambitious, right? So from a very young age, he discouraged me from going and learning to cook and stuff like that. He would like always ask me, do you want to change the world, or do you want to create perfect rotis, stuff like that. I feel that, it came from the fact that he grew up in a very poor family and, his education helped him become a professor who currently has like the highest contribution to protein structures in the world. So I feel that because of his journey, there was a lot of this ambition that I saw growing up. And but I didn't have any of my own ambition as a kid. But I had these 2 parents and I was the only child who I didn't want to let down. So it was sort of, I was just soaking in that ambition. I knew that I didn't want to become a doctor because I would meet like 30-year-old doctors who were still like hadn't completed their education, and I realized it's a very, very hard life. You're working 24/7. So I thought, okay, engineer. And then they said, okay, engineering hai, so you have to go to the best, which is IIT. So I started studying for IIT. Honestly, on my first flight to IIT, I was in the plane, and one of my professors was there, and I just went up to him and spoke to him. I'm like, I'm going to IIT. What do you think? He said, so he started asking me questions, and one of the questions he asked me is, what do you want to do? And then I started, talking about, I want to change the world, blah, blah. And then he said, no, really tell me, what do you want to do? And then he like sort of cut through all the crap, and then I said, I want to be rich. So, and that was at 17.
Wow.
And then he said that...
That's a good ambition to have.
Yeah. And then he said, one of the things that you might want to consider is being an entrepreneur. And that's the first time I actually heard that word. And then I went to, IIM Ahmedabad, and that's where I met a few of my co-founders, and I did an internship at Deutsche Bank in investment banking, 1 month in London, 1 month in New York. I figured that, did all that when you're a young investment banking intern. All you're doing is like getting coffee for the desk and donuts for everybody and stuff like that. From IIM Ahmedabad, when you're graduating, there are a lot of career options, and entrepreneurship is not one of them. I mean, at that time, there was hardly like less than 1% of the batch would consider starting up right out of campus. And the first business plan that we actually worked on was this women's lingerie brand. Idea was to educate women about the right size and create a brand that really gets Indian women and has products for them. In fact, the brand name was supposed to be Caress. And but yeah, it was one of those plans that required some funding, unlike 2023, where you can just walk into a program called Shark Tank and raise some capital. At that time, it was very hard to raise funding, especially if you didn't have any experience in the category where you were trying to build. So we got a bunch of rejections, and that, before the business started, it shut down. So, but by then it was too late to go back to a job. So that's how the entrepreneurship road happened.
But becoming an entrepreneur, like you said, it doesn't come as a natural thought to most women. Even if a woman is very ambitious, you would think एक बहुत ही अच्छा job करना है, कोई company में CEO बनना है. And in fact, at one point I even remember that women being ambitious was not considered to be a compliment. It's like, nahi, aapko to ghar sambhalna hai. And she's very career oriented. I mean, if it's in a marriage proposal, it's a gali, right? But you're saying, on the contrary, your upbringing was a bit different, which is what sort of pushed you to move in this direction.
I think as women, we naturally have this DNA where we want to do more for others. And I think that's what makes us very good at a lot of things, from parenting to very good at leadership, at managing our teams, and we have our own style, and I think that empathy goes a very long way. That combined with when you grow up in a culture where ambition is looked down upon and ambitious women are considered to be, those nobody would like or want to get married to, it becomes, it's like you were sort of creating this double pressure for women to continue doing that. So I think that's why I feel now that my father went to one extreme of trying to imbibe this kida of ambition at a very young age when I was still impressionable, because he knew that I would end up becoming this person who wanted to do more for others, like most women are.
Would you like
so I think he just wanted to counter that natural DNA that all of us have, and I think that worked.
And we're looking at the result today, aren't we? Maybe more dads should do that to their
I'm grateful.
daughters.
I used to fight with him a lot growing up, and I used to think that this is absolutely bizarre, because even till date, sometimes when I have to cook in the morning for my kids, and I just figuring out that I don't have this life skill, like call up my dad and be like, why were you so anti like me spending more time in the kitchen? Like, really,
can you make round rotis though?
Absolutely not. But I get where he was coming from. I get that where he wanted me to, also have that little ambitious streak. And I feel that what you said is correct, that very few women grow up ambitious because of there's this social signaling throughout our upbringing that tone it down, don't be loud, fit into that space, don't be heard. Like, really, apparently in moral science classes as kids, women used to be told like, you have to be seen but not heard,
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? And I feel that all of that does end up limiting how big our career aspirations are. But
Yeah.
it's changing.
Yeah.
I feel also when we were growing up, there were fewer role models.
Yeah.
And there were hardly any women entrepreneurs who were role models.
True.
As on date, there are so many that when I look at the 12-year-old girls that I now meet,
Yeah.
I feel that they're just going to be so unstoppable and ambitious because
Absolutely.
suddenly, they are being raised just like the boys are,
Yeah.
at least to the extent that most of us can. And then, of course, they have these role models
Yeah.
to learn from. And I think there won't be any career where women will think that, oh, this is not for me. Like
Yeah.
for us, entrepreneurship was maybe 15 years back.
Absolutely. How did your marriage come about? Because I'm talking about husbands in general also here. And to have a woman that strong in a marriage can sometimes be intimidating for the family or the husband.
Of all the life decisions, career decisions that you make, who you get married to probably has the greatest impact. And for me, I feel that I really lucked out there because so I met my husband at IIM Ahmedabad.
Okay.
And so he was studying, he was one batch junior to me, and he also started up after IIM Ahmedabad. So both of us had this interest where we used to talk about entrepreneurship, but we ended up starting our own companies before we got together to start Sugar together a few years back.
Yeah.
And I feel that he's somebody who's really the exact opposite of me in terms of the way he thinks.
Yeah.
And he's also better than me as a person. So he's unlike a lot of men who would feel insecure about this. He's very generous. And he also realizes, I mean, he grew up in Calcutta, which is by design a very feminist, Bengalis are generally very feminist, I feel. Growing up, he saw his mom working throughout.
Yeah.
He's seen small things, like he's seen his dad iron the sari blouse for her before a wedding.
Oh, right,
He's seen his dad be the last person at 10 p.m. at night putting the stuff back in the fridge because his mom would sleep earlier because she would wake up earlier. So I feel that some of these smaller things have a far bigger impact. You can tell kids all you want,
Yeah.
but they learn the most from what they see you do. And I feel that luckily for me, at a young age, my husband saw my mother-in-law seem like an equal partner in that relationship, and that made a huge impact on how he is as a person. And I feel that if that wasn't the case, irrespective of how ambitious I was, I wouldn't have been able to do half of this because I would have to do 6 times more work at home, which an average woman in India has to do.
To balance it out, right?
Yeah, because and that's data. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation report that shows that even if you're an educated woman, even if you're working, the number of hours you put in a day in unpaid domestic chores at home is 6 times more than a man, because that's how our societies are designed. That's how women are. That's how men's expectations and society's expectations are, and it just plays out and compounds when you have kids, and it just skews so much. Whereas, in some cases, like I feel like in my case, there is a husband who's ready to do, equal parenting, ready to do equal responsibilities at home. That has a huge impact on how free you are to really build your career, think about your own ambitions, aspirations, and just being married to a person who's independent and not dependent on you, for everyday needs. I feel, we have a great relationship thanks to that, and that's why I think that it is important to find the right, depending on how ambitious you are, it's important to find the right partner who gets that early on rather than there being mismatched later.
Absolutely. And I think in your personal life, if there is some sort of dissatisfaction, you can't perform well, you can't have the best productivity at work. It just absolutely drains you down.
Absolutely. And I realized very early on that I think irrespective of how much money you make, what kind of career success you have, what kind of organizations you build, the only lasting source of true happiness is your family. And that is like what is keeps your core in its place, and that's the one thing you need to be going right. You can't say that, oh, I'm so, doing so well in my career, so it's okay if I'm struggling in my personal life. There's something that's going right. I mean, that can happen in other things. Like there was a point where my career was at like rock bottom, and I really relied on, say, running to get some self-esteem. But I feel that, just having, a loving family and a family that you really love and you like spending time with and who love you for who you are is that's the absolute foundation. So that you can't replace that happiness with, like over-indexing on some other aspect of life. And I feel that, luckily for me, my family has been very supportive through this whole journey.
Wow. We're going to play a fun game with you on that note, which is called 5-second fire. I'm going to give you 2 choices and you have to choose one. Run a country or run a business?
Run a business. I love my job.
Constant supply of best coffee or constant supply of best snacks at work?
Best coffee. Absolutely. I need it.
Okay, great job with a terrible boss or great boss with a terrible job?
Great boss with a terrible job.
Okay, why would you say that though?
If you're in your 20s, I think having a good boss
is very important.
You end up learning a lot more because, most people like stop learning from a job beyond 1 to 3 years. So, but with a good boss, you can continue learning and upskilling yourself. Yeah.
If you could learn any language in a week?
Korean.
Yeah, okay. One subject you were best at in school?
Maths.
Commute 2 hours for your dream job or live 2 minutes away from your mediocre job?
Oh.
Given that your office and house is in Powai.
That is Dharam Sankat. I would do whatever sacrifice in the world I need to make for having my dream job 2 minutes away.
Okay.
Like my whole family.
Which you've done though.
Which I've done, yes.
Okay. So what do you impulse buy the most?
Impulse buy clothes, I think.
Yeah? What's the most interesting thing in your purse right now?
All my sugar makeup.
I'm going to check if it is just a plug-in or is that for real?
No, but if you talk about interesting, this is actually lipstick.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's like this liquid lipstick that you put on and then it stays put and it's very cute.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
I love the packaging of it.
Yeah, it's very cute and it's like tiny purses. Perfect.
Okay, if you could uninvent something, what would it be?
Oh, there are a lot of products that I could undo. I think every great product has come from 10 disasters. The ratio might vary, but you do when you are building a business, you do make a lot of experiments and a lot of things fail.
Yeah.
So I think I've learned all of it the hard way.
Yeah, but talking of failure, I'm sure the entrepreneurial journey is not all that hunky-dory. I mean, people know it only when you've got the funding, you are successful just by societal norms, but there are a lot of low points as well. Yeah. And I think how you bounce back is really, really important. Yeah. So have you had those moments in your life? Yeah. And what have been your learnings?
I have had a lot of them. In fact, almost 10 years of not getting any success and trying a lot of things. So yeah, I had decided to start this lingerie business back in 2007 and then that didn't work. And then for 5 years, I was bootstrapping and trying to run this, this background verification business, but it wasn't scaling. And then after that, my co-founders left and various things happened, and finally I had to leave it after 5 years of running it. And then in 2012, my husband and I started FabBag, and which was an e-commerce company, and it was again too early for beauty e-commerce in India. And so for almost 3-4 years, we tried building it. So many, more than 100 rejections from venture capitalists that this is not going to work. And then we come across, conceptualize the idea of sugar. And at that time, when actually sugar was born, it was absolute rock bottom because we were really out of capital. We had no money left. And I had already seen 3-4 failures in what I tried to build. It was impossible from an environment perspective to raise money because it was just a bad market. People weren't ready for a brand coming out of India. They always said that premium brands, to wohi ban sakte hain jo made in Europe and made in US. A brand coming out of India for Indian women will never work. But the good thing is that, for all those 100 people who reject you, you just need that one to believe in you.
Yeah.
And luckily, we had this one investor who had come in earlier who agreed to give us this loan of 1 crore. And I feel that was the turning point, and it came really late. It came in 2017, like just about 5 years back. So it's easy to say that, okay, we got lucky. Yes, we got lucky. And I think luck plays a huge role in things working out. But we somehow also managed to show up day after day for 15 years, you know. And I feel that's the final crux to building a company. You have to somehow find the motivation, the courage to show up for your customer day after day. You're having a good day, bad day, you've just had the worst rejection, you've just had the worst failure, you have no money in your bank, you're having a mental breakdown, but you have to show up every single morning for your customer. And if there's some way that you can do that over 15 years, then there's nothing that can stop you. And I've really, I mean, it's such an easy thing to say, but it's hard to do because it's not the big ideas that make the difference, and it's not like the lucky moments where somebody agrees to do something, but it's that act of being consistent and showing up every morning is what makes the difference. Absolutely. And that's the hard part.
But I'm sure in these 15 years, you would have had many moments where you could have just quit and joined a job. You mentioned about 1 crore funding getting in 2017, but weren't you getting 1 crore offer? Didn't you get that as your salary offer long back?
Yeah. So if I thought about, what salary I had left in 2007.
What did you leave? If you can tell us, give us some numbers.
I mean, it was an offer, which was actually for outside of India. So it was when you converted USD to rupees, it was 1 crore. But because in 2007, Indian business schools never used to get a 1 crore offer. It was the first time in IIM Ahmedabad there was one bank that actually stepped up and said, if we can give this to graduates from a Harvard or a Wharton, why are we not giving Indian B school graduates at par? And they decided to up that offer to 1 crore, which was actually about 200,000 USD. And that made news because it was the first of its kind in India. And it also made news because I was just 23 at that time, because I just never worked anywhere. So it was the idea of a young person getting a big offer, and that to a girl.
And that to the girl rejected the offer.
And then that,
Where did that confidence come from, that you knew that you would make much more than that?
And just imagine that not making that for like, many, many years, more than a decade after that. Right? So just imagine like saying that, okay, I did this. And then having nothing to show for a decade.
Did you regret that?
Of course, many times. And it was, of course, very hard, because when you come out of an IIT IIM, you have this, have this responsibility to do something with your life. You feel like, oh, did I waste the seat? So it was quite hard. And in fact, I remember the first salary that I had was 10,000 rupees. Because we were a services company, so cash flow managing, so you could only take what you were earning, and it's hard to get business early on. And living in Mumbai by myself, I remember in IIT market, there was a place which was like some 5,000 rupees rent.
5,000 rupees? A rented apartment in Powai?
Yeah.
Would you get that? Yes. How many people were living in that house?
No, so it was a 1 BK. Okay, so the idea was that it was 1 HK, sorry, 1 hall and kitchen. So my landlady basically had a apartment upstairs where she wanted to keep her bedroom locked with all her stuff. So she gave me the hall and the kitchen. This is in IIT market. And it was really like, one of those where the roof would drip during monsoons, and like every month just, making ends meet meant like buying a coffee outside means you can't like afford to do a lot of things rest of the month. And all my batchmates were much better off. They were already thinking about buying houses, and they would like want to meet up on weekends at Hard Rock Cafe. Where like the drink started at like $700, and I was, be like $700 is like a lot of money. But I wanted to be in Powai because it was the only place in Bombay where there was startup action. Right, so there was IIT right there. You went to a cafe coffee day to meet somebody, and you would see like these startup conversations. So we would hire interns from IIT Bombay, pay them like 5,000 rupees a month, and they would come and work with us, and you get like, really good talent just because it's close by for them. So I feel that it was, at least it was like the right part of the ecosystem that we got to be. And my parents would sometimes come visiting, and they'd be like, should I get you a TV? And I'd be like, no, self-respect, I'll not. And then suddenly by evening, and I come sometimes, so they've sponsored me a TV for me, a refrigerator. And I remember those smallest of things. So having that support, like, so through all those moments of fear, uncertainty, regret, I somehow got myself to not quit. And I'm very grateful for that.
Like perseverance is very, very important.
There's no other way. I think for entrepreneurship and in life, the most important trait is actually grit. There's an entire book by Angela Duckworth that talks about when, across the spectrum, when they look at people who've done well from the military to, different kind of careers, grit is one of those life skills that is just, you can't substitute it with anything else, because it's like failure, pain, rejection, unhappiness is inevitable, but you have the courage and the perseverance to.
But from one hall kitchen, how big is your apartment now in Powai? And I know Powai's real estate is very expensive.
But I'm grateful that I managed to get from there to where we are today.
Okay, so happy to know about your journey. Vineeta, what I do want to know is when you're working or when you're starting up, you're always talking about your co-founders. You're talking about your husband who you're working with. And I feel like for a business, it also depends on your equation with your co-founders and if they are thinking on the same lines as you or not. And if there are more than 2 or more than 3, it always becomes more difficult. And you've always had co-founders. How do you navigate through those struggles?
4 is a crowd. You will spend so much time in decision making, because you put 4 alpha people in a room and ask them to arrive at a decision. There'll be so many opinions and arguments that there's just precious time going into decision making by it. So I think at that time, unless there is a business where you can, like a lot of people can independently manage stuff without stepping on each other's toes, was too much. And as a result of this, I think it did not work out for us also. Over a period of time, like there were co-founder exits, and I feel that 2, 3 is a better number. I think firstly, you definitely need a co-founder, I feel, in a lot of businesses, because when it gets really hard, you can't always share the pain with the team, because they're looking at you for encouragement in the most tough times. They want to see hope in your eyes. But a lot of times there isn't any hope, right? There are times where there are tough decisions to be made. There is, we have to cut warehouse space, and we've gone through so many times. We have to, there's no, like, we have to cut down on marketing. We have to go back to our old office because we can't afford the rent of the new one. When you have to go through those situations, you need somebody who's at the same place as you. And I feel that having a co-founder, firstly, gets you somebody who thinks differently. And in like Kaushik and my case, we think about everything exact opposite way, and that really helps us like have a counter view, and I feel that that's what helps us come to the right thing. But over a period of time, you learn firstly to start leaving your ego at the door. I feel a lot of the conflict happens because our need to be right, our need to say I told you so, is so much higher than what's in the best interest for the business. And over a period of time, if you figure out a way to have these disagreements, align on a decision based on certain things. Like for us, there are certain areas where Kaushik's decision is final. There are certain areas where mine is final. And there is, if we can disagree for like an hour, and then if we agree on something, both of us will still commit ourselves to making that happen. And we'll put everything. We will not then try to prove that, I was right. And so you have to keep the ego at the door. You have to, think about and have a lot of respect for your co-founder. And I think if that happens, then it's a beautiful relationship. In my case, it's both are a marriage, but for all co-founders, I think it's a marriage. And if you learn to have respect, mutual respect, and, mutual space. In decision making also, you need to give space. If you have that, then it's a great partnership.
Team also plays a very important role for a successful business. And is there a way that you found where you get the team to be as motivated as the founders? Or is there ever going to be a place where the team is as motivated as the founders?
Oh, definitely. Our team is definitely as motivated. Sometimes I feel that they are, even more passionate about what we are building. They're all part of that whole the creative mission. And I feel that firstly, not everyone can fit in a startup. So it's really important that when you are hiring to get people who can be believers. Because belief is something that one can't teach in like a B school or anywhere, right? The belief, even the hardest of times, that what we're building, the thing that we're working on is worth it. It's worth the pain. It's going to be big one day. The belief that, these two founders who have taken a bet on is not a wrong bet. They might be going through a hard time, but I will stick around. Because it will turn around, because what they're trying to build over like the next 2 decades makes sense. I think all of that is very important, and very few people will have that kind of belief. And I feel, but there are people who have that. So I feel it's very important early on to get people who are believers, get people who have that attitude that they want to come in, learn, they want to do something with all their heart, because there are a lot of people in the world who are just trying to get through a 9-to-5 job. And unfortunately, at no scale will they fit in a startup. So I think, and we make a lot of hiring mistakes because it's hard to figure out, but you have to accept that, okay, this was a hiring mistake. It doesn't make sense for either of us. I feel that in the last 2 years, this whole startups became so cool that so many people started looking at joining startups because they thought that this was a way to make more money. But unfortunately, it always isn't like that. Startup is going to go through the bad phases. If you're not ready to be there for the ride through the ups and the downs, then you'll never make that kind of money.
Absolutely.
Right? You have to be the right fit for it to click. And when it clicks, I think that, there are people in my team that I've worked with for 9-10 years. Imagine sugar did not exist. They've been around from the time that sugar did not exist.
Finally, let's talk about motherhood. You're a mom to 2 kids. I think a lot of ambitious women push their decisions to becoming a mom because that might affect their careers. How has it been for you, and how do you manage being a mom to 2 kids and a full-fledged business and your show Shark Tank? How are you doing it all?
So it is hard, and my kids are 4 and 7. So I do like to spend a lot of time with them. I do have a lot of help, but most importantly, I don't think I'm always trying to look for a balance. A lot of time people talk about like work-life balance or like the scale where everything will always be equal. I feel that if you just follow the heart and do what's right by you, irrespective of what judgment everybody has. First time I became a mom, I did everything right. The whole like breastfeeding when I'm traveling, then breast milk, whatever. But I've always been a runner, and I had this like ambition that after I have my first child, I want to still be able to run and afterwards, because I want to feel that my body is like it was. And so I ran a half marathon within like 5 to 6 months, within 2 hours. And I remember while I was training for that, while I was doing everything right, I would get a lot of judgment from other runners saying that, I don't think thawed milk is as good as real, breast milk fresh. Or, oh, you left the baby with the dad, that's unfortunate, and stuff like that. And for a long time, I thought that even after doing everything right, there is no way I can meet the expectations of the society. And then but my kids, are really resilient. They love me. I love the time with them. So why am I looking at my own motherhood journey from their lens? And I think once I realized that the only thing that we can do to deal with this judgment is like have a thick skin. And my own mom guilt as well. So whenever I feel like I'm not doing right, I will follow my heart and I will cancel everything to spend time with my children.
Are you a part of the WhatsApp groups that all school parents have? Are you active
no
with
Facebook groups, no WhatsApp groups, no. I obviously show up for every single parent-teacher meeting and all the events for my kids. But I run away from all groups because I feel that there's just so much pressure and judgment that comes from trying to be the better mom. And I feel that race I'm never winning. So I'm staying out of that race. It's fine, it's fine to be a working mother, to not be perfect all the time, to have like to struggle.
Yeah.
And there is no, I mean, that whole living with judgment and still not letting that get to you. I think that's a journey which every woman has to go through at some point. And I feel that just, being there for my colleagues at work and letting them see me as I am helps them also think that someday they can do it.
Absolutely. Last question, I promise. Shark Tank, just as a jury as well as an investor, what do you invest in? Is it the entrepreneur? Is it the business owner? Is it the business? What is the quality that you look for before you make that decision?
So I invest in the founders. It's always been about the founders, and I am not somebody who can ever say invest in the business, because in my own journey, I've failed at a lot of businesses, succeeded at one, right? So, but yes, beyond the founder. So, first thing I look for is that will the founder have the resilience to deal with failures, learn from them, and still show up? That is very rare. And so, which is why I look for that. I mean, if they've failed in the past, if they've seen the really rock bottom phases in their life or their journey, then I'm likely to give them an offer. And because they'd have learned something from it. I mean, they would have done a lot of mistakes, but every mistake is a learning opportunity. And then, of course, there's this founder market fit. I feel that there are certain founders who are very good at certain things. Sometimes they start a business in a wrong thing where there's no founder market fit. Like, I started a B2B company and I really was terrible at it because I didn't enjoy doing it. So I feel that, do they love what they're doing? Because if they love it, it's likely that they'll be very good at it and they'll be able to stay the course for a long time. So, does this business make them happy? Because it's not going to make them money very soon. So it should at least make them happy. So those are the 2-3 things that I look for to know that this is going to be a good bet for the long run.
Vineeta, it's not only been interesting talking to you, but also very, very inspirational. Thank you so much for sparing your time and sharing this brunch with me, which we are now going to finish. I have been keeping you engaged in conversation, but we've got to do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.